Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello, it's lovely to be here.
Hi.
Oh, we're so pleased to be back. Thank you for inviting us into your homes because it's a privilege for us and it's lovely to be here. And if you haven't been before, it doesn't matter. These two will be standalone, so absolutely fine. And I'd like to introduce Liz Williams to you. She's a yoga teacher from Northamptonshire.
Here's Nancy Taylor, who is also a yoga teacher from Northamptonshire, and we're both in Nancy's home, and any issues with distance or whatever, it's because we are working from a home. So please bear with any sort of things that look a bit distorted or odd. So it's worth mentioning.
Yes. And as Janine said, you had your reminders about what good to do. Just want to really make you just check and do what you can today, not what you think you want to do or what you want to do. And this session will be seated or standing or a bit of both, and a bit of both, I should say. So take the option that's suitable for you. There'll be, as Janine said, question and answers at the end, and the video from the previous session will be sent. Over to you, Liz.
Okay, well, I'm going to sort of lead us through something. Just a quick mention at the beginning. Breathing. Please keep breathing. It's really quite important. But don't try and force breathing. As soon as we start thinking about breathing, we start doing weird things like that. We want to actually just develop a natural breath, which means involving the whole body, and particularly this area, the diaphragm area, and right the way down to here. The whole purpose of doing yoga, as opposed to maybe some other forms of exercise, is to open breathing spaces within the body. And that might not be where we actually know there's air coming in, but our whole body gets that sense of being able to breathe, and it's then more comfortable. So don't focus on breathing to the extent that you're trying to breathe. Just breathe as naturally as possible. And if you can't breathe easily through your nose, which is obviously the better way to do it, maybe just letting the breath in through the mouth, through the nose, and lightly out through the mouth. Not like that, but just a very gentle breath that you might feel on your hand. We'll come to more about breathing later, but just breathe, please. So let's get going. And as always, this is the best thing, a bit of bottom wriggling. We've all sat down, we've all done other things this morning. So getting our seat comfortable is really important. Having a sort of general wiggle on that bottom more than anything, and then just making sure you know where your feet are. You can't see mine very well, but you can see Nancy's. But we need to know our feet are firmly on the floor. If you need something underneath your feet to elevate them, I think it says in the guidelines, you know, a book or something allows your legs to be a little higher and not just dangle. So it all depends on whatever seat you've actually got to use. So we just keep wriggling a little bit, just a general wriggle. Finding that earth, we talked about earth and elements last time, so we're finding our ground. And now we're going to just circle around on that ground. So we're trying to almost grind ourselves in, you know, like a pestle and mortar type thing. We're just moving around, and we don't have to go too far. And we might notice that we're a bit sticky on one side. I have, because I've driven over here this morning quite a distance. So I'm a bit stiff on one side. If I go in the opposite direction, funnily enough, I don't feel that stiffness. So maybe you can just experiment yourself by going round in one way a few times, and then round in the other way, and see where perhaps you feel a little bit stiffer. And then we don't do too many. The body gets tired, gets bored, mind gets bored, so we change the activity. And we're going to go side to side. And again, it's not too far, and we're not going too fast. We want to feel what's happening. At the moment, we're both doing this sort of a bit together, but we don't have to do it together. So I'm going to stop, and Nancy will continue moving to experience what it's like for her. And you'll notice that as she gets more familiar with the movement, she can rock a bit further, and maybe there's a little bit of elevation on one side. Does it feel okay? Good?
Yes, and it's good to notice one side and another, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're always different each side. So we do a few of those, and then we start to find what it will be like forward and back, but we always come back to centre. And we always think ourselves long from our sit bones, from the floor, and up through the tops of our ears. So we always start there. And then we can start to just rock forward and back. And please don't look at the screen when you come forward. Just feel yourself just tilt and keep the head, neck and trunk in line. It's the front of the body that we want to actually allow to feel strong and be aware of. And we go as far as we feel comfortable. We don't want to tilt so far we feel we might fall off the chair. So Nancy's using her hands to go over the tops of her knees. That's quite helpful. It also indicates how far she might feel she can go. And if you've got room to lean backwards on your seat, not everybody will, just see what it's like to go backwards. And again, don't look at the screen. Keep that head, neck and trunk in line. So it looks a bit weird on the screen, but that's all we're doing. It's just going backwards and forwards. And back to neutral. And then another bottom wiggle. So we're just getting things loosened up and warmed up. It's a jolly cold morning. So
yeah, that's it. We were going to say, make sure you've got your layers on.
Yeah. We'll have your heating turned up. I know we're trying to save money, but there is a limit to how low you can go safely. So keep moving a little bit, keep wriggling, and get those shoulders just wiggling around a bit. Don't hold the hands together because that can limit things. So just let everything have a bit of a generalised wiggle. And again, I know my shoulders on one side are a bit tight because I've been driving. So just a little bit of a general wiggle around. And then back to neutral, just so you've got a moment, and it is literally a moment, to check, I'm here. And then we'll start to move feet and legs. These are really important for every day, not just for being able to stand and do our yoga. So we'll come back to a little bit more with feet and legs in a minute. But let's just see what happens if we push down with one ball of the foot, lower the foot, and then with the other one, we lift and lower. And because of the screen angle, these things can look a bit weird and distorted, but you're doing it to your feeling, not to copy us. So just up and down, just a few times, and then we go the other way, like a little duck flap. So the feet are coming up and up. And yes, we're working into ankles, which might seem rather stiff, but you might feel, if you've got your hands here, how things work up in the legs. And although this might seem very basic, you never know when it's going to be necessary for you to go to basics.
So we're keeping our heels on the floor, aren't we, Liz?
Yeah, with this one, we keep the heels on the floor and we're just lifting like that. And then we go the other way again. Okay, just a few. All we're doing is just wakening the body up. Some of you might not have got up till quite recently. Some of us have been up for ages. So, we're just seeing what's available. But even if we were up early, I bet we didn't spend any time with our bodies. So, you know, we were rushing around. So this is maybe the first time we're saying, hello, body, how are you doing? So we've moved that. And we go back to another little wiggle, just a weeny one. And then we're going to see what our legs feel like doing. So it's already initiated that movement as we go on to our ball of the feet. But now we're going to lift and lower and just see what that feels like to you. And if you try lifting too high and you're very tight down one side, then what tends to happen is that. And if we translate that into a walking, then we really would be waddling like a little duck side to side. So we're trying to think of strengthening not only our legs, but our trunks. So we're lifting and lowering. Lifting and lowering.
We're keeping this trunk nice and upright, aren't we, Liz? Rather than thinking, well, I could do a bit more because I'm leaning back.
Absolutely right, yes. So we're just seeing what we can do using the muscles here, muscles up the back. But even if you're only coming up a tiny little bit, which doesn't show, tiny bit, it doesn't matter. You're going to actually be activating and strengthening. So just seeing how that is, maybe coming up 3 or 4 inches and just staying with it for a moment and noticing if that's a bit of a challenge. And then putting that leg down and lifting the other one, just a fraction, and staying with it. And whether you think, oh gosh, I'm going to have to do this. As soon as you get that sort of feeling, or you stop breathing, you put your foot down. So you're gradually starting to build strength and stamina into what seems a very simple little movement, but it's going to be beneficial for all day, every day.
Can I just mention something there? Because this particular one, doesn't it? It shows what the support is like on the foot that's on the floor. So you can very good at noticing whether you're getting more support from one leg compared to the other.
Yes, and it isn't just the leg, the foot. It's what's going on in here. This is the important bit. This is your support, really. You're sitting on a chair. That foot at the moment is only ancillary support. Whereas when we're standing, it's slightly different. But we're trying to develop this strength and awareness of this leg, not the one that's wafting up and down. It's a bit like a flag waving otherwise. So have another wiggle and another wiggle into your shoulders. And a wiggle in the middle, if you can do it. Okay, and we're trying to get this middle to do the wiggling, not just our shoulders or our heads. So it's here, which is quite tricky. And Nancy's laughing because she knows that one's tricky. Yeah. And then we can make that movement go the other way. So it's going forwards and back, and we're not diving down with our heads or just tucking our heads in. We're trying to get this movement here in the middle. So you can pop your hands, so your fingers are sort of on the end of your breastbone, your thumb is about on the end of your breastbone, your ribcage, and you're just trying to go over so you can see chair seat or just between your feet, but you're not going very far. And what you're really doing is lengthening the front of your body, opening out, and lengthening the back of the body, creating space. That's what all this is about, remember. We want space. So again, when we've done a few of those, we have yet another generalized wiggle. Rock. Know what our legs are doing, because we're going to actually have to start to move a little bit more, those who want to. So if you feel today you don't want to stand up, although maybe just a few little moves would be helpful, because at some point during the day, unless you are totally confined to a chair, you will have to get up. You want to go to the toilet, you're going to have to get up. So that's why these things are so important to do. So have a wiggle, and then maybe just unfold your wings and reach to wherever. Some people might be there, some people might be here, but we're just exploring a reach. And then we might do the same with our legs. Come up onto your toes. You will lean back a little bit, and you might only take one leg off the floor and reach. And then you might take the other leg off the floor. And you might find you can take both legs, both arms. But you don't have to. You're exploring your body, not mine, not Nancy's. It's you. So we do that. It's fun. It's fun. It can be, yes, it can be fun. It's fun just experimenting, actually. But you're experimenting with this connected into the body, not, as so often happens, this bit, it's almost like you've had your head cut off. This is doing all the thinking, all the busyness, totally disconnected from the body. And then you suddenly think, oh my goodness, I've got this, I've got this. And you haven't noticed why that might have been happening. So all of these movements are absolutely, I would say, essential. I do some before I even get out of bed in the morning, just the general wriggling, and I would recommend that. So, settling, 2 seconds. Just allow yourself to feel yourself breathing. One more lovely big open to wherever you want to go, maybe the legs, maybe the arms, and then fold back in, and perhaps that gives you a chance to just curl up a little bit. And now we're ready to stand. So, standing, you need your feet. You might need to be a bit nearer the front of a chair, not so far forward that the chair's going to tilt, but a little bit more forward. And then you just find where initially, and this is all we're going to do is a bit of prep, is just feel ourselves leaning forward to the point when maybe the bottom almost comes up. But if your feet are too far forward, that's never going to happen. So you've got to use this little prep time to see where your feet need to be. Now, normally in everyday life, we don't think about standing. Here, we're almost breaking down that movement until we can go forward, and maybe our bottom does come off the chair. Maybe it doesn't. Some people might need to have their hands on the chair to get that far. Or if you've got arms on your chair, you can have them there. But we're just experimenting about coming up and going down. And the important thing is, you will have noticed that neither of us are looking forward and up. We're keeping that long body like we did right at the beginning. Because otherwise, would you like to just show what's happened, Nancy, when you stick your head up? It doesn't look good, but she's creating a lot of tension down her back and making it harder work, and in the neck, and it's harder work. So much easier, isn't it, Nancy, when you come like that, and then you can stand up, all of a piece. So Nancy's just going to show where she's coming to each time. You can see a little bit more chair under her bottom. But she's going to practice for the sitting down people, because some people aren't going to stand. But I would recommend that if you can, you're going to come up, because as we've already said, it is an everyday necessity. Now I'm going to move my chair with care over there, and then I'm going to stand back a bit. You're never going to see all the top of my arms. So if you really want to look at arms, follow what Nancy's doing, I would be standing back here. And we're just going to see what it's like now to stand. We talk about balance and we worry about balance, and we always think that means standing on one leg. But actually, there's balance here. So just see what it is like. And it isn't see, it's really feel what it's like. You don't need to see, you're using an inner awareness to feel what it's like to stand. And you might find you've got more weight on one leg. You're rocking to one side. And even if you're sitting, you've not stood up, Nancy could find she's got more weight on one buttock. I'm sure she hasn't, but she could have. Yeah? So just see what it's like for you. Are you leaning to one side? Or even do you rock back a bit, in which case your tummy sticks out? I'll see if I can demo that from the side. If you're doing that, I exaggerate, but this is what happened. And then it's quite a challenge to walk. Or you could be like that. So just notice what it's like for you. And see if you can find those feet, find this pelvis, have a wiggle, wiggle the shoulders, feel that you can almost lift up through your ears and do nothing. So we're just finding that little bit of balance, and then we're going to maybe just bend those knees a fraction to challenge that and come up. But what we're not doing is pushing legs back. You can't really see like this, but we don't want to push the backs of the legs back and make ourselves very rigid. So we want a natural lift.
And the seated people, do you want to take them through that?
The seated people, you're still looking at keeping these legs long, your feet on the floor, and keep wriggling to find that point of balance, even if you're sitting. And perhaps even just experiment, again, with leaning forward to sit up. Just that, again, is going to keep working. So if we're not if we're talking, you can keep playing with each move.
Or we could lift our heels off the floor.
You could do. Okay. So we've already done a little bit of movement and just thought about doing side to side, forward and back, round and round. We're just starting to explore that. And
do you want to turn those things off?
It doesn't matter. We're looking at a technical thing here. This is the thing, when you're working from somebody's home, and we don't do it every day, so there we go. Right, we're going to start to think about marching on the spot. So again, this is walking. We just see what's happening. We're doing nothing particular, we're just lifting the legs. We've already done this sitting, but now we're just experimenting what it's like standing. So some of you might have wanted now to go back to your chair. That's absolutely fine. You can always get up again. We're not going to see what you're doing. So move between chair and standing till you can start to practice a little bit more and get more comfortable with it. Now, very often, because of tightness one side, which I've already admitted to, you see what happens when I stand on one leg, I'm tending to lean. When I stand on the other one, I don't. Can you see that difference? And I'm exaggerating it a little bit, but that's because I've got some tightness, some discomfort in here from driving and natural scoliosis a bit. So we're just seeing what it's like. Do feel you can get up and down from your chair and you can hold on. So don't feel it's better to try and do it and be all over the place. This allows your body to get confidence, to build strength and improve stamina. So never think it's better to do it like that and be struggling. Okay? Hold on. Or sit down. So we've just worked with that, but now we can start to add a bit of arm movement. And we're going to, first of all, just see what it's like to stretch up. Because funnily enough, when we stand and balance, it's really a whole body thing. So we're going up and maybe we're going to stay there. And we might notice as we reach, there's some sort of connection going down to one or both feet. Can you feel that even when you're sitting, Nancy? Or just to your seat?
I'm feeling it more to the seat.
Yes.
At the moment.
Yes. You will feel it in your seat.
Yes.
Whereas I'm going to feel it down to my feet. So this is showing the difference.
And this could be sore for people. So if you need to, just lift an elbow a little bit. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yeah. You move to where it's right for you, not for us. You're experimenting. And you might find you really can reach. This is making a nice cross connection down here and into my legs. Nancy is probably getting a cross connection to her opposite hip. Yeah?
Lovely. Well, it's interesting because it feels, I feel as if you're doing quite a lot, actually.
Yes.
Physically wise.
Yes.
It's very good.
It's surprising. You think, oh, chair yoga, it's easy. It isn't. It can be much harder because you're really having to notice and things can really work. I ought to be doing some with the other arm. So we're just feeling that. Just going up. We don't do too many, for goodness sake. We're probably overdoing it. You experiment with your body. But I notice as soon as I move this side, I'm trying to sort of compensate again. So it's giving me some very interesting feedback to really feel I'm getting the support from here and the feet to reach. So my body's having to work up through a whole raft of muscles. Okay, shall we take both arms, Nancy? So if we're taking both, think elbows and reach. And just see where you come to. Not everybody will be all the way up. And of course, you're all breathing nicely. Don't worry about breathing. Just breathe and reach. And maybe go out and round. Just feel what's actually quite good for you. So you're just moving. And those who are standing might feel they can just come into a little mini squat as they do that. So you're reaching up and coming down. And you can hold that for a few seconds. Just a breath. And then we can stop. You can carry on working. And then we're going to just resume this marching on the spot because we haven't moved our legs for a little while. We've used a lot of arms. So we don't need to take our arms terribly high, but we're just going to think about marching on the spot. Now, as soon as we think about walking, we end up doing spotty dog and all sorts of things, for those who remember the wooden chops. So we're going opposites. And Nancy's sitting, so it will look a little bit different. Those of us who are standing, it'll be just a march. And we're not doing it rigidly. We're just nice and soft. Just feel what it's like. Okay. And a few of those, but then we could experiment. What's it like to do one side and the other? And then suddenly we're thinking, oh, if we're standing, whoops, what's happening here? We balance. We did it with one leg, but now we've added an arm. That could create a challenge. And it can be equally challenging sitting. So if you're standing, keep doing it. Don't just stop because I've stopped.
One thing it can do with the arm and the leg is perhaps demonstrate the difference in the sides a little bit more.
Totally, yes.
In terms of the support you're getting.
Yes, because as Nancy reaches up on this side, she's having to work much harder on the other side to keep the support and to keep fixed to the chair. Otherwise, she'll lean over. So this is what we say. It's not just the moving bits we need to worry about. It's the non-moving parts that are perhaps the ones that are doing much more of the work. And unfortunately, they're the ones that get compromised when we get injured because they've suddenly given way or something. And we need to really look at this idea of keeping the strength as evenly as possible on both sides. We don't just want mechanical movements. We're not going to be like toy soldiers marching forever and ever. We want to be able to feel what's happening in our bodies. So those who are maybe standing, keep moving, and maybe start to go across a bit. Now Nancy can start to swing across, but we haven't done much rotation.
No, we haven't.
I meant to put it in earlier. So we're just seeing what it's like. And just experimenting. And it's all too easy to start to twist on one side with a leg like I'm doing, but not on the other. We can choose to twist with a leg, but is it happening without us knowing it? Same when you're sitting.
Indeed, and for the seat people who are with me, it's easy, isn't it, then to start putting your legs somewhere funny. So,
absolutely.
So let's keep our lovely upright position with a bit of effort and see what that's like.
Yeah, it's not always as easy as you think.
Twists are very good on a chair, aren't they?
They are very good, very good. So have another general wriggle when you've done as many as you want. And then we're going to bring in a little sequence that can be very useful. It's based on all movements we've already done, but we're actually going to put them into a sequence. And if you did this every day, when you get up, while you're waiting for the kettle to boil, whatever, you'll find it makes a huge difference to your own mobility, your stability, and just your general feeling of being awake and alert and upright. So what we're going to actually do is what we've already done, a little bit of moving in the middle. And we're going to do 2 of those to each side, just like that. We're not going too far, just a little bit of movement. Then we're going to do a mini rotation. At the moment, we're both keeping our arms in a very neutral place, 2 to each side. Let the head go with the movement. Don't try turning it too far. I'm looking at the screen. You can continue to look at the screen or just let your head go. So 2 of those to each side. And then it's that forward and back movement, which when we're standing can be a bit challenging because we think, oh, I'm going to fall over. So it's just a mini movement here and here, keeping the body in line. So the head will go, the shoulders will round, but we're not trying to make them. So that is the sequence. And then we repeat it. So always it's 2. You can do more, and as we get stronger and whatever, we can use them and stay with it. But for the moment, we're going a bit further. But now it's starting to develop much more. So we go 2 to each side. And we stabilise in the middle. Then we do a little twist. 2 to each side. And then we do the forward and back. I'm only putting my hand there just to remind you of this is what we're moving. The tummy comes in and we're not pushing the belly out, we're just arching back and feeling how the front of the body can lengthen, the back of the body can lengthen.
So we're not feeling that this is just squashing and collapsing. No. We've got that lovely length that we're going to take into that little roundy shape.
Yes. And you notice this a lot more on a chair because you haven't got to worry about this dreaded word balance. So as soon as you feel unstable, sit down and do it. So then we are going to do it one more time, but we can change our arm position. We don't have to have them hanging by our sides. You might have them here, you might have them here, anywhere. We won't go too far with it, but maybe I'm going to do mine here today. So we're going sideways. And remember, you're working at your speed, not ours. We're looking a bit robotic doing it. So I'll stop and Nancy's going to move. Or maybe I can.
You won't. Take a talk.
So 2 to each side. Okay. Always stabilise, even if it's for a nanosecond. Then a rotation. And you might find, as I have, and I haven't tried to do this, I'm going that little bit further, and I know Nancy is, when I turn this way, I can see. So just building up like this can make a huge difference. Then it's the forwards and back. And feel how, as you curl forward, those who are standing, there's stuff going on in the legs. Same when you're going back. Feel how the legs are involved. Nancy's going to feel it much more in her seat and probably a bit in her thighs. But we're just sensing what's going on. And the standing people could be going quite a lot further. So could the sitting people. But you've not made that your start. You've made this, it's just come into being. You've invited the body to join in. Okay. So 3 of those would do. We don't have to do loads and loads, but you could practice those at home. And also, as you get more used to doing it, you can go and stay where you are like this and maybe just feel where you're breathing. But we'll introduce a little bit more perhaps with that next week. What do you think?
Good idea.
So have another general wiggle. And now we're going to do what we both like as a sequence to do. We use it often in classes. And for those who were with us last time, we did do a couple of these. It's called the Egyptian sun salute. So we're going to move our arms and shoulders again, just round and round. Because we are going to be using those, we've checked that we're nice and tall. And whether that's sitting or standing, it's entirely up to you. You might want to just watch the first one and then join in for the second one. And we're thinking about being, you know, like you see on the Egyptian hieroglyphs, they're sitting very upright, very open. And this is what we're getting, the same idea when we're standing. They're very sort of like this. We're not going to be rigid, forced, but we're going to be upright, dignified. I think is the best word. Dignified.
And the sitting people are working here.
They should be working jolly hard. As you are.
Yes.
Okay, so you could have your hands here, but that might be uncomfortable for people. You haven't got long enough arms to bring those palms together. You can start here. It can be anywhere, but we're going to start to lift those arms out through the elbows and just reach for the sky. You lose my hands, but you can see Nancy's. And then we come down again. And we're going to do that again. Reach for the sky. And this time, as standing people come down, they're going to come into a little mini squat. Sitting people can come up onto the balls of their feet and not go too far, just a little lean forward. Then we're going to go up again. We might not go miles. We could have our hands here, and we're going to the side. And if either of those hand positions are no good, they can be here, they can be here. But again, we're doing 2 to each side. So it's very similar to what we've just done, but with a little bit more focus into arms. When we've done each side, we can go up again. Feel that reach along the sides of the body. Doesn't matter where your arms come. And for the standing people, we're into a mini squat. Sitting people are doing a squat on the chair, so to speak.
Heels are lifting.
Heels are lifting. So we can do that. I do this different number every time, so please don't worry if you're doing more, less, or whatever, because I always am. So now we're going to take that into a mini twist, but we can have our hands here, we could have them here, wherever. We're going round. Our heads are just going with the movement, but we're not twisting like that. And see what happens to the legs when we're standing. Same when you're sitting, actually. So we're more or less trying to make the rotation come out of here. So I'll keep my hands here to show you where I'm coming from. Out the middle.
The sitting people, of course, might have a restriction with your chair, but don't worry about it. Just adapt as best you can and concentrate on this lovely middle bit of the body.
Yes. It's not really how far you go, it's how you do it that's important. And then you find ways of maybe moving your seat forward, you know, your bottom further forward on the chair. That was restricting you.
Or your hands here, perhaps.
Absolutely.
It might just be that.
Or keeping this one back, Nancy, so that really opens you out.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Really nice.
So we've lost our sequence. This is what always happens in a general class. You're having an experience just like we do in class. So we're going to go all the way up again. Let's start from the beginning. All the way up and come down into a mini squat. And all the way up again. And then over to one side, wherever your arms are. I'll bring mine down because you can't see. So to each side, you can do 1, you can do 2, it doesn't matter. And you're not having to work at the speed we're doing it. For some reason, we are doing it in a lovely synchronized fashion. And then we can go up again and reach. And our little mini squat. And you can see I'm going further already. Just because the body's saying, okay, this isn't so difficult. I've been invited to play, I'm not being forced. Then we can stay in that vertical and do our rotation from the middle to each side. And then we can go all the way up again. And all the way down. And you'll notice my knees do not come together, folks. So if you're going down and your knees are doing that, then don't go so far. Keep that little bit of daylight between. Lovely. I'd like to just point something that Nancy so beautifully demonstrated when she was doing her rotation. So would you like to just do that, Nancy, your rotation? That's it, just stop there. Now, because Nancy's taken her arm across her body, she's doing the reach with her arm. So there's not an awful lot of rotation in the middle. Whereas if Nancy actually moved that way, so come back to the centre, and there, can you feel that difference, Nancy? I know I'm sort of manhandling you.
No, I do.
Can you feel that difference? So she's now opening more across this diagonal than if she's trying to reach across. So do you want to demonstrate the reach across again? Doesn't matter which side you go. But you see, as she reaches across, the aim is just for her to do that, and she'll collapse her body. If she kept going, she would collapse her body forwards. So she's losing this openness. So by sliding that, she's having to work up her back to stay open. Okay? And that is different. So thank you very much for demoing that. That was beautiful.
It's a pleasure.
Beautiful. Okay. Shall we do one more with me trying not to interrupt? And then we'll sit and breathe. So, settle. And then wherever you want your hands, it really doesn't matter. But we're going up in a beautiful, dignified way to wherever is comfortable, and just that little fraction. And then we can come down, keep breathing, mini squat, up again, really reach, and then back again, mini squat. We're just doing 2 repetitions of each movement. Keep the hands in the centre for a moment. That might be as far as you want to go because we're going to the sides. Or they could do what Nancy's done, take them over the top. Or reach even higher to each side. 2 to each side. To the centre. And we can reach again. Those who are going all the way up. Those who are standing can do our mini squat this way. Those who are sitting can come onto the balls of the feet and just come forward a little. And then we're going to rotate. Just going to where we can go comfortably without compromising other parts of the body. I know I can't rotate as far to one side because of that tightness that I mentioned earlier. But it's a lot easier than it was before. I've gone much further. Then we can go up one more time, and this time going for whatever really feels good to us. And maybe just opening out. It's called a sun salute. So imagine you're welcoming the sun. It's a beautiful sunny day here. Hopefully it is with you. And then all the way back down again. And because I've loosened up, I managed to get almost to a deep squat. Opening up one more time, enjoy that. You might be leaning back. And back to our start. And have a wriggle. Nancy, because she's been sitting, is really going to have to move around her bottom because her clothes will have pulled and all sorts. You know, we're not going to demonstrate naked yoga, but it will be totally different. It's not worth thinking about that.
I have to edit that bit out.
Okay.
And you know, if you have been sitting for a while and you do need to get up, well, of course, get up. You know, that's okay with you.
Absolutely right, yes. So we're going to sit and we're just going to have a little breathing space. Now Nancy's put on an extra layer. I can be brave. Okay, And I'm going to move slightly more forward because I'm turning the chair, because we're going to demonstrate a breathing thing we can do. But the important thing is not for you to be necessarily watching us. It's to just resettle into your bodies. So take as long as you need to wriggle, find your feet, feel that connection between your shoulders and your seat. You're always sort of coming up through a line through the middle, up through the ears. And don't be surprised if this looks really odd on the video, because I'm afraid Zoom does distort. So, yeah, don't just watch what we do, because it could look very strange. So we're coming up and we're just getting that sense of lift. Do put another layer on, please, if you need it. You might find you think you're all right, and then suddenly the body goes, ooh. So yeah, do move. And the same for movement. Always just be prepared to listen to your body. Don't override the signals. All the time, your body is doing a sort of virus check like your computer does. And that gets on with it and corrects certain things. But every so often, something dire goes wrong, and then we panic. But it's the same with our bodies. Something goes, we haven't noticed, and then we're in, oh, what's happened here? You know, I've tightened up, I've hurt myself, whatever. So often we can find out what's going on before it becomes a big issue, by just giving ourselves a little bit of breathing space and time. We're being mindful. So as you sit, hopefully the body feels reasonably settled, and you can start to be aware of movement that relates to breathing. We know we're breathing, but how do we know we're breathing? Can you feel movement somewhere? And there might be one point in the body or several points where you can feel it more than anywhere else. Because I'm talking, I'm requiring more effort to breathe. Nancy's not talking, so maybe, Nancy, you could put your hands on your body to somewhere where you feel breathing is happening. Yeah. Now that's a really good spot. And it's probably, if she was an octopus, she could go around the sides and the back as well. So she's feeling this movement, not because she's making anything happen, there's movement happening. And hopefully, as she's breathing in, you can put your hands back now, Nancy, if you want. But as she's breathing in, there's that sense of expanding on an in-breath and going in on an out-breath. Not because she's making it happen, it's just starting to be this natural movement. I sort of think a bit like when you watch those nature programs, you see sea anemones sort of doing this sort of movement. But it could be anything. Waves do it. It's a natural movement in nature. So we're just expanding and retracting. And if it happens that you're noticing your shoulders are lifting because you're trying to breathe, we don't want that. We'd rather have the focus of breath much lower down. So see if your shoulders are trying to do it. Put the other hand down here and almost feel that you can expand this area with a little bit of help to stop this one rising up. We're having the whole body starting to expand and retract. Your sea anemone or your flower opening and closing, whatever image suits you. And it's not always easy. The hardest things to teach somebody is how to breathe and how to relax, because we try too hard. So sometimes we can add a little bit that can be helpful. And although we're still doing something with this next practice, it allows us to sort of link things together a little bit and not worry about it once we've got the hang of the movement. So this is a form of what some people know as alternate nostril breathing. And we can bring the hands wherever they feel most comfortable. Now, for some of you, particularly if you've got short arms, it's a good idea to do what Nancy's going to demonstrate. She doesn't need to particularly, but it's quite useful. She's going to put her arms on the cushion and just encourage her elbows to go back a little bit because the hands are supported. And that allows her to open up the front of the body. If she didn't have the cushion, she could be sitting a bit slumped, particularly if you've got short arms and a long body. So maybe not today, but maybe if you're going to practice this at home, put a pillow or something across your legs, or even have your hands resting on the table. That will do equally. So we're nice and open, nice and long. And we're going to imagine that we're going to breathe in through one arm all the way up and then breathe out all through the other one. So make sure you're wriggled comfortably. And if you don't want to use the cushion, that's it. Because it's easier for you, whatever.
I'm feeling what it's like.
Yeah,
it's good.
Lovely. So we're going to use our left side as our first in-breath. So as we breathe in, the fingers just lightly curl. And as we want to breathe out, the other hand lightly extend. It's not a big stretch. And then as we breathe in, the opposite hand curls. And as we breathe out, we open out the first hand. And we just continue with that movement. I can't do it while I'm talking, but Nancy is breathing to open one hand and to close the other. It's not a big deal. So we're breathing out through one side and then we breathe in through that side and breathe out through the opposite side. And you might notice, some of you, that it's called alternate nostril breathing. You almost feel that that's what you're doing. You're breathing in through one nostril and out through the other. But don't worry if you can't feel that or sense it. Just keep breathing and letting the hand movement go with it to find your rhythm. No big deal. And when you choose to finish, or when I let you finish, so to speak, do it through the left nostril, left hand, breathing out. And then let the breath come in as it will. Both hands open out. Feel you are receiving. That's what this is about. You're receiving breath. And then you can just let go. Maybe move the hands, move the elbows, and feel how your whole body, how your mind, how your whole person feels after that week practice. Bend a cushion.
And it can be nice, if it's a practice that you get into, to have the eyes closed, but that's not compulsory. Just you can see what that's like.
Find what suits you. To begin with, it will always feel odd. I'm doing something and it feels a bit anxiety making. You can't go wrong. As long as you keep breathing, you're okay. But it's nice to breathe with the whole body. We do have an internal respiration as well as what we know of as filling our lungs and emptying our lungs. So that's the mechanics of, but there is a lot more to it besides. We could do a whole session on breathing. So I'm done. I'm going to hand you over to Nancy. And for those of you who need to go, thanks for joining us. Those who've already gone, sorry about that. And just find a comfortable position on your seat. Okay.
Just want to remind you a bit of home practice. That stand and sitting, it's so useful as an everyday thing. It's things that physios recommend as well. So don't underestimate finding your standing and sitting throughout the day, and give yourself some breathing space, please.